Hey everybody, this is Petey from the Spinner Rack, and today I am doing, since the Marvel Cinematic Universe has done, um, just introduced us to the Skrulls a little while ago in Captain Marvel, and they keep showing up. They talk of a Skrull invasion. I wanted to do a story about, um, damn it, I should have had the other issue, but we're gonna do this crossover, and this is a unique crossover because the actual events actually cross over between the Avengers annual and the Fantastic Four annual, and you can see between these two covers, we have the Avengers on one side of the angle, with by Kerry Gamble, inked by Kyle Baker, the famous Kyle Baker, and then we have Kerry Gamble, inked by Joe Sinnott. And that same thing will happen within the book. John Byrne is drawing both issues. He's writing the Fantastic Four. Roger Stern is writing the Avengers. Joe Sinnott is inking the Fantastic Four, just like the cover. And Kyle Baker's inking the Avengers. So, both of these stories continue from an existing story before, where the Avengers are struggling with Nebula, and she gets on them, but the Avengers get help by the Skrulls to stop Nebula, right? And then in the Fantastic Four and their story in FF 257, the Skrull homeworld gets destroyed. Now we haven't heard much from the Skrulls, and I guess it's almost a what would it be? A 2-year period. So this is a big Skrull story outside of what Roger Stern was doing in the Avengers, right? So, and this is the war to end all Skrulls, right? So in this issue, we'll start with the Avengers, but I think I'm going to go back and forth. So I'm going to move this guy over, and go here, and open this guy up, right? A little high, right? So we start off, and this happens, I think it's in a Clar, it's a actual prison sort of planet. Now everyone likes doing prison planets. Well, this is the first we've kind of seen this. We get to see almost a galactic war going on here. Let's move this guy a little bit further over. And we get to hear Ranksor. Now Ranksor is a character that appeared in the X-Men 137, who's actually in the Death of Phoenix, and he's also in the FF annual before this, the annual number 18, and he's now back with the Skrull Worlds, and he goes in there and he frees Prince Dezen, right? And Prince Dezen is in this sort of thing that locks him in the position where he can't shapeshift, right? So he's freed by these Skrulls, right? Now the Avengers themselves, they're still working with the Skrulls, and they're at Sanctuary 2, and they're sort of just reflecting on what's happening before, but they don't know what's going on here, right? And I'm going to try to go between both. Now they're with the actual. You just go over some of the events. They're still worried about Nebula. I think this with the Skrull, but now they're just different Skrull generals. That's the aspect of this story. It's talking about the Skrulls actually in turmoil, right? And then while they're in turmoil, we have different factions running the different areas of the Skrull Empire and the colonized areas by different people, right? So in their search for Nebula, it will lead them to something else that's going on. So they got Firelord there. They're trying to help him out. And they bring up the power asteroid. Now, in the Fantastic Four, they'll deal with that later. But that's the only thing that's left. But it's going to be something that goes way back to when the Super Skrull was introduced, right? And here we go. They get to the power asteroid, and then at the same time, this is still going on. It doesn't lead them to that, and then of course the Skrulls aren't too happy of working with the Avengers. And when they get to this other area, passing through subspace, they run into seemingly these 50s biplanes. Now, this goes back to an old Fantastic Four story that no one's touched on because it was too similar to the Star Trek series, where they had aliens that were gangsters. And these aliens actually were fans of the 50s culture. So they have a Zeppelin here. Their tech, which is actually high tech stuff, looks like old school U.S. tech and outfits. This leads to a little war. They're ready with their Tommy guns and whatnot. The Avengers make short work of them, but then they run into the ruler here, who looks like Humphrey Bogart. And he goes by Donahue. Right? He's going by Donahue. They sort of talk things over, and then they sort of run into a bigger problem, right? They have a bigger problem, which Prince Desmond is talking about, that one of the people that he worked with, well, he's going to deal with that later, right? They're thinking they can have fun in this town because it has all this debauchery of the 50s, right? But at the same time, they got to stick to their goals, right? But at the same time, you run into Prince Desmond, and he causes such an uproar, right? And this leads to the main plot of the story, which is Prince, which is Zabek, and he has this plot. And of course, once he gets Desmond kind of sent to prison and locked in with this mask. But at the same time, while all this is happening, obviously, as I told you before, the Skrull homeworld gets eaten, and then their chief scientist, Byrne, sees this, and he goes a little nuts in seeing that, right? So then Desmond, as his Zyback, while he's going around his thing, he runs into Byrne, and he's like, "Hey, you can help me out with my plan." But Ranksor, he has been a spy watching this stuff, and he reports. But then at the same time, the Skrulls are still not happy with Prince Desmond being there. And then they kind of get into an argument. And this is one of the things that there's a point in here that Reed says something about the Skrulls. But it's good talking to see this sort of intergalactic struggle that the Skrulls have as colonizers, right? And then they make the decision to make the road, go out there to try to deal with Zybeck. So while this is happening, we're going to pause while they're traveling to the actual power station. Let's go to the Fantastic Four issue. So that's page 19. I'll move this all the way over and start going through this one, right? Because this is a crossover, right? Here we go. So, Summons from the Stars. And we get to see First Contact. Well, it's not First Contact for Marvel, but it's one of the first contacts that the FF already experienced. If you knew the history, there was an alien that came to Earth, and this is similar to that story. An alien had fantastic powers. This is Joe Sinnott after leaving the FF. I think he left around issue 231. This is his first inking of the FF since then. He might have inked an annual, I'm not sure, I'd have to check. But so everyone interacted, they think it's an invasion, but there's nothing they can do. And then when they try to shoot at the alien, he gets this protection. And then they shoot at them, dozens of them pop up. They call, the cop recognizes what it is, he calls the Avengers, but this cop is abreast of where the FF is right now. He knows that the FF are in the Avengers mansion. They use the FF's calling card, the flare. Johnny's eating with Alicia. He gets the call and he's out there. Reed with the rest of the crew are traveling in one of these funky things Kirby would kind of put these guys in. And they just start heading back. And of course, Reed knows what's going on. He's seen this character. This is Infant Terrible. She remembers him from back in the day. You're among friends. And then they tell of the Skrulls trying to make a treaty with the Elans. And then, of course, things don't work out. The Skrulls upset. But at the same time, they then attack, destroy, and take over the Skrull. And it's almost like a Superman type scene where they send off the kid. The kid talks about their invasion. Right? But Reed is bringing up some issues right here. They get into the ship because they can't fly. They have nothing that's going to fly them out there in the time that they need, because obviously the FF haven't traveled that way. It's usually through the Skrull ships that they usually travel, right? But at the same time, we go to the actual, this is all a ruse, right? And all the plan is destruction of the Fantastic Four. So you get to see different levels, right? You got these ones that have some issues, some sort of politics, and these are the classic Skrulls that are planned to destroy the FF and will prove her superiority. Yep, and see them get ready. They transform into the aliens like the Infant Terrible, right? So they come in there. Sue's leading the charge, and I was totally surprised by this. And then, of course, Reed is acting up and he gets shot, but he's actually a Skrull. And this is the important part about Skrulls, is that you shouldn't know who they are. There should be a mystery that you have to figure out. And this is the important part, which I don't think they did in the movies, right? So then the FF makes short work of them. Then, of course, in the actual Infant Terrible suit is Reed. Reed goes, but at the same time, the leader points out that this is the end for the death knell for the universe itself. So we'll come back to that to set us up the rest of the stuff that's going on in this issue. So the Avengers travel in the biplanes to the power station. They get in. They travel with something. They got to check their papers. The Skrulls are getting some weird readings, and actually it's the Avengers. The Avengers are making short work of them. Captain Marvel is doing her thing. You recognize her as, I don't know what, just call her Monica Rambeau, but she's actually Captain Marvel, or whatever they're going to call her in the movies, because there's Marvels. Then they say, look, we got to stop all of them, you know? And it doesn't work out. They're making short work of everything, but here's your suit for maximum protection. So he has this crazy plan that he's going to genetically lock all of the Skrulls so they can't shapeshift anymore. So he's using his shape-shifting powers to actually get into this suit. And he's happy, he's ready. But at the same time as he's ready, he kills Byrne, right? So while that's going, let's go back. This is a true sort of crossover, right? We're going to do really short in this one because we're really running down the wire. So then they start talking to them and then explain to She-Hulk what's going on. They wish they kind of were able to do this without, any sort of bloodshed. But she's surprised that the effort wouldn't stop earlier. And of course, Reed said he could stop the great destruction, but they get to the power station. And here they say that the power station is what they used to send a beam to power the Super Skrull, right? So that's, that's cool as anything. If you are FF reader, right? And you just saw Byrne was almost supposedly killed, but he wasn't. He's ready to stop them, and then next thing you know, this way you find out that Skrulls actually have hair, right? And he says the hyperwave bomb will detonate and it'll be finished all over. We have to stop, right? Go back to this issue. The Avengers are making short work of everything, and then they run into Thor, says he got things handled. He's going to detect Zybek's hideaway. Let Thor lead. Captain Marvel's also traveling, but she finds some things that will kind of stop her. She does different things to get through their systems, right? But Thor, of course, reveals himself to be someone fake, and of course, it's the Skrull. They hear all of this action. They're still taking apart the Skrulls. And then we have a point where they're like saying, he calls him an Earth lover. He said, "Do you think Krillin?" He said, "You're wrong. Here's my true face. Prince Destin." And then there's a shock that happens. He's terrified. It's best I reassume the Krillin features before I shock them all speechless. And then where we left off with the Fantastic Four, we have this. Now this is mirrored in both books. This portion here, right? So we have, who's that guy? Star Fox try to take out S.H.I.E.L.D., but of course she's hit by something hidden. The next thing you know, the Fantastic Four show up. He says there's some pressure, but I can hold them. And then they don't believe one or the other, but then they figure out that they're not. But there's nothing they can do. They're too late. Zybek is going to use the hyperwave bomb and become the master of the universe. Now, the Avengers don't know what this will do, right? So then, while they're there, see, even though this is Kyle Baker, there's some shots here that look like it's Joe Rubenstein. Thought I might have saw some on this page. Like, these are Kyle Baker faces, but then we got a Joe Rubenstein face here, which I was like surprised. I think there's some other ones later too. And then Captain Marvel tries to take it out, but she sees there's nothing she could do. It's going to break her apart, and there'll be destruction of even more stuff. So she has to escape, right? It happens instantaneously, right? She's right back. She didn't. Right when Reed was about to say don't, she came back. And he didn't understand it all, but he hit the hyperwave. And then, of course, the broadcast is going all over. It's death of anything, but in actuality, it's not. The hyperwave was to lock the Skrulls into their whatever they were transformed to, but at the same time, it would keep Zybek back in his ability to change, right? And the wave, this actual thing that they shot energy out to the Super Skrull, is actually shot throughout the universe from that power station. And we can see the Skrulls there. It's only affecting the Skrulls. And it's also affecting Zybek. And then Prince Destin, he is transformed, but he wanted to die with his Skrull face. But it seems like he's happy. Let's see, here's another face that's kind of etched in a little clear, where it's not the Kyle Baker face. So, I don't know. Like this, see, we got a couple other ones. We got, I think, these Hercules here. We got these two faces here that feel like they're Joe Rubenstein faces, right? talk about what Captain Marvel's doing. That luckily didn't destroy everything. And then they break in, they find Zybeck, and he's finished. And Prince Desden is now here, and he's going to try to help things out, right? So we'll go back to we're going to show you this. We'll go back to the Fantastic Four in a second. But they talk about this thing, and then the other thing is, what did Prince Desden do? And he was someone in a world like society like the Skrulls wanted peace. So I don't know why the Avengers didn't use Prince Desden, because it would have been fun to have a character that totally liked peace. But since we got that, we're not done yet. We're just going to see how it mirrored in the Fantastic Four, right? So we had the same things happening. And we left off here. So the opposite. They hear the rumbling. There's Cap and crew. Star Fox gets knocked away. Hercules pushed against the force field. They figure it out. But Zybeck is going to set the Master of the Universe. Now the other couple pages with Captain Marvel are not in there. So it's just like, Captain Marvel, don't. I didn't. As immediately as he said it. And this is a cool shot here. All of them. This one thing that we rarely get to see. The characters reacting to the coolness of the other characters, right? We have Joe Sinnott's inking of all this stuff. The same deal. This is the first time, even though they were at the mansion, the first time they really fought together, the Avengers and the Fantastic Four, because the Fantastic Four lost their headquarters. And they're saying the menace is finally ended. But if you read the Silver Surfer, it hadn't actually ended. So there we go. We went through that. We got through a classic 2 issues by John Byrne, Roger Stern, Kyle Baker, and Joe Sinnott. It's a nice sort of galactic war type of deal, and you get to meet a lot of Skrulls, which even in the Great Kree Skrull War, we didn't meet a lot of Skrulls and get to see a lot of their personalities. So, Spinner Rack out.